Hi, YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. Today I'm going to be talking about why practicing isn't enough. This is kind of an interesting concept that I wanted to talk about because there is so much incredible content out there talking about practice exercises, anything from bebop scales to technical finger busters, as Eric Marienthal would put it. There are chord books, there are reharmonization techniques, there are all these sorts of things that I as a saxophonist have explored in much depth. But there's something that I noticed a couple of years ago, and that was that it really mattered less and less what it was that I was practicing, and it became more and more important why I was practicing. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about that and hopefully provide some value to some people who might be feeling in the same position. I think that why we do what we do really colors the outcome of what we do. And what I mean by that is that your intentions behind what you do are very, very powerful. If you set out to do something and your intentions are impure, or they come from a place of insecurity or desperation, I think eventually your outcome will reek of that desperation or insecurity. And that's something that I have discovered myself due to my own sense of motivation. I when I was in college, I was largely fueled by desperation and and the approval of others, and wanting to be the hot shot, whatever. I wanted to be the guy who everybody looked at and said, "Oh man, he's the guy." And I kind of lost myself in that whole process. That's not to say that I didn't learn something from it, which it's a very powerful process to go through, but I think it's a little bit more of a smooth path if you're able to iron out exactly what it is that you want to achieve and why you want to achieve it before you even set out. That doesn't mean that you can't start going on your path without knowing all of that, but it certainly makes it easier. If not easier, it makes it more balanced and well rooted. I hope I'm making sense. So why do we practice what we practice? Well, we practice because we want to get better, right? I practice because I want to get better. I have spent countless hours practicing things that I have probably never ever played. But what I think is more important, or one of the things that I think is more important than actually what you practice, is how you practice it. And I think that practicing is really designed to create a more intimate relationship with you and between you and your instrument. And if you practice with love, with focus, with intent, with balance, with ferociousness, with whatever it is, you can embed that energy into everything that you do as a musician. It's like you are what you eat, and if you practice with intent, with love, with passion, then everything you play will have that. I mean, in the long run, I don't think that, if you play without intent, without passion, without discipline, And if you spend one day practicing that way, I don't think that your entire life is going to change, or your entire musical voice is going to change in one day, although it's very possible. Um, what I have found is that over time, with dedicated effort, practicing the way that I wish to play, I have gradually impacted the way that I play. It's kind of like becoming a better person. So every time I lose my train of thought here, I just go back to the title of this, is why I don't even remember the title at this point, but the why we practice is more important than what we practice. And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about intent before I sign off here. This video, I mean, it's crazy how 6 minutes are flying by. If what we set out to do is fueled by, let's say, need for approval, it may be that what we set out to do isn't what we're meant to do. And that's not to say that I'm not meant to play the saxophone or any other instrument for that matter. But I know that a lot of what motivated me to practice, especially when I was younger, was the idea of impressing my peers. And that's kind of a sad and grim motivator. It works. It worked for me, but I found that it didn't work over the long term. And that fuel source is limited, because I have pushed myself incredibly hard using that as my fuel source. I don't know if that makes sense to you. I hope it makes sense to you, because I don't know if I have another analogy for it right now, but I was using the motivation of the approval of others as my fuel source for a long time, and I have pushed myself to the limit, practicing and dedicating myself to the craft. And I found that that source of motivation ran out for me. So it was at that point that I realized that the only source of motivation was one that came within me, for me, because I chose to do something. And it has nothing to do with the approval of others. Approval of others is very nice, but I had let it dictate the course of my entire life. And I just hope that I am able to continue building and improving upon this new source of drive within myself, one that indicates to me that I am enough, whether I practice or I don't practice, or if I practice, the wrong lick, or I practice this or that. I'm always going to learn something, and I'm always going to grow from whatever I do, regardless of what's going on around me. I can take into account what other people are doing, and I can participate in what they're doing, but not be brainwashed by what they're doing, or shoot, I'm trying to find the right word. Not be sucked in so much that I think that my entire worth is built around what they're doing, and if I'm not doing that, somehow I'm doing something wrong. Because the reality is, you say, "Oh, I like hamburgers," and everybody's like, "Okay, you like hamburgers." Well, I don't like hot dogs as much as I like hamburgers. And you'd think that that's a very simple and easy thing, but if you see everybody around you eating hot dogs, you're like, "Is there something wrong with me for eating hot dogs or for not liking hot dogs?" Or, something that I did was like, if I'm eating hamburgers, look at me, I'm eating hamburgers and the rest of you are eating hot dogs. And, that was another source of motivation for me, is like I was doing what everybody else wasn't doing for a while. And that too is still informed by what other people are doing, and it has nothing to do with what I want to do. So there are two sides of it. You can either go with the flow for approval, or against the flow for whatever reaction you get from going against the flow. In either way, that's still driven by external forces, and it has nothing to do with what's actually in here. So anyway, I digress. I really hope you've gotten some value out of this. I wanted to put this video out just to kind of stream of consciousness express some of my thoughts about practicing, and how it really has nothing to do with what you're practicing, but why you practice. Why do you pick up your instrument every day? What do you hope to achieve? And I think it's more about mindset than anything else. I think that what we do is about, it's a mental game. And it's amazing because there are some players who don't really have technical facility on their instrument, but they can play a much more compelling story than somebody with all the technical facility in the world. And that kind of thing really blows my mind, because it obviously has nothing to do with how well you play your instrument. It has more to do with why you play or how you play. So it's just some food for thought. I'll probably be diving into this and other things like this um, in future videos. So please, if you got some value out of this, feel free to like the video or subscribe if you want to hear more stuff like this. I just like to share my thoughts, and hopefully you get some value out of it. And maybe I'll see you sometime soon. Thanks, and I'll see you another time. Bye bye.